Time.
Blessings on you.
All right, today we're going to talk about celebrating your loved one after their death. So it's interesting, Pastor. We say celebrating after their death. What happens is we know we have a celebration at death. Is that right?
Yes.
That's what we call a funeral service, right? Now you're a minister, you're a pastor, you have done many celebration services. But what happens is after that service, there are still celebrations that you're used to sharing with your loved one.
Right.
So we still have holidays that we share with our loved ones.
Right.
As well as we have their birthdays and special days. I said, if it's your mother, there's Mother's Day is still going to happen. If it's your Father's Day is still going to happen. Christmas is still going to happen.
Right.
Their individual birthdays in your individual birthday is going to happen. How do you recommend for those who are watching, those who are listening, how do you recommend for them to celebrate their loved one even after death?
Well, I recommend that you and the family get together and discuss some things that y'all used to do together.
Okay.
With my mother, we used to do garage sale hunting.
Okay.
And on certain days, every day, Monday through Friday, or through Saturday, it didn't bother me. But Sunday, when her birthday fell on a Sunday, it hurt because that was the only day that I would really be with her all day, was Sunday, because I was at work the other days. But that Sunday brought back, I remember I used to see her playing the piano and stuff at the church. So what you have to do is just remember the good times and celebrate those.
So celebrate. So today is Aline Beckwith's birthday. So she's been deceased for 22 years. She would have been 80 years old today. Has she yet been alive, this would have been a major celebration.
Yeah.
She would have turned 80. We would have had a big party. We would have had friends and family. I would have bought her anything she wanted, anything she could think of, or anything I could think of. We would have made a major deal out of such a milestone birthday. But she is deceased. Now what do?
We still celebrate.
You said still celebrate the birthday.
Yes.
They're not here. I'm sad. I'm not feeling it. I want to just not do anything today. Not even want to do what I normally should do or would do. And then you still, how do you celebrate if they're not here?
Well, you think of, about the place they're in.
Okay.
And we
think about heaven, right?
Right.
So we say, absent from the body, present with the Lord.
Right.
We know the body dies, the body rests and waiting on the resurrection, but the spirit goes back to God immediately. We know God is in heaven. So we believe that our loved ones are in heaven. And when Jesus come back, he's going to come back with them. Because he talks about coming back with them.
Right.
In 1 Thessalonians, y'all, if you want to quote me on that. So we know that they're in heaven, right? And how do we celebrate with them? They're in heaven, we on earth.
Well, just with me, what I do, I think of those songs that my mother used to sing and stuff, and I was singing some of those songs. And he talked to my grandkids and my great-grandkids about my mother and let them know how she was. And that made me happy. Just even in the sad part, I could still get some joy out of it. I could think about those 7 whoopings she gave me in one day, and I didn't do the same thing twice.
So you're saying even in celebration, you can still use your memories.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the 7 whoopings in one day, doing 7 different things.
Yes.
Now, how would you celebrate that? I mean, tell us about the memory. Maybe we can celebrate with you.
Well, the memory was that if you came by my house and I spoke to you and you didn't speak, you better run, come pick up a rock and throw it at you. And one day, my mother caught me doing that. And she said, boy, I think I need to teach you a lesson about this so you won't be doing this.
You was biblical even before you knew you was a preacher.
Yeah.
You was trying to stone people.
I was trying to do it.
They say those without sin throw the first stone. You was trying to throw the
I was trying to throw it. And then come to find out what my mother was trying to teach me is that sometimes people's mind be other places.
So everybody's not going to speak to you
They're
just
not
because you
gonna
speak.
just because
And they don't
I
need to be stoned for that.
They're right.
Okay.
And then
So then she whoops you to remind you?
Yes.
What kind of whoopings did you get?
Oh, my parents misread the Bible.
Okay.
The Bible said, whatever you find a sign to your hands to do it.
Okay.
My parents read, whatever you find a sign to your hands to use it.
Okay.
So my mother didn't care whether it's switch, belt.
So you've been whooped with a switch before?
Switch,
You've been whooped with a belt before?
Razor strap.
Okay, a razor strap. The strap you use to sharpen your razor. Okay.
Extension cord.
An extension cord you use to plug up the electronics.
Right,
okay.
And a pair of shoes.
And shoes. All right, you've been whooped with a lot of things. Now, you're a different generation. How old are you, Pastor?
I am 69.
69. So you what we would call a baby boomer. You was being whooped by the silent generation, and they believe in whooping children. They believe that in order to keep your kids straight, keep them out of prison, keep them out of the graveyard early, you give them a whooping.
Right.
Because they wasn't too far removed from a slave mentality.
Right.
Now, you got to keep in mind that their grandparents were actually slaves.
Yes.
So if my parents are 80, that would have made her mother maybe 110, maybe, and which made her grandmother even farther back, which put her in that slave mentality, where if an African American did do something right, you beat them. Right. And that just kind of
kept the ball.
And it's so crazy that we thought that was the case, and we thought we was actually helping.
Right.
Did it actually help you?
Yes, because I got tired of getting whooping.
So you started acting right.
So I started
throwing stones.
I stopped throwing rocks and stuff.
And I have nothing against those who gave whoopings, because that silent generation that whooped the baby boomers, I agree with them totally. But now times have changed. So the X generation, Generation X, didn't get as many whoopings as baby boomers did. Right. You agree? Right. That your kids, that you whoop your kids the way your parents whooped you?
No, because their mother wouldn't let me.
Right. So you didn't. So they didn't get the same whoopings. And your daughter turned out pretty good, didn't she?
Turned out good.
She graduated from college. She got married. She have kids.
Right.
So really, the whooping wasn't the.
It wasn't the.
That wasn't answer. That ain't what kept her out of jail. That ain't what kept her out of the grave. No. It's just a different generation.
Different generation.
And you know, Generation X very seldom ever whoop those millennials.
Right.
How many of them skipped church in
oh Lord.
They wasn't made to go to church, and they sure wasn't made to get whoopings.
No.
Just a different. So that's, if nothing else, we can sit around and celebrate our mothers, our fathers on these special days, just from memories of just things like that. Yeah. Just talking about how different that they raised us compared to how we raised our children. Now, this is what I found out by that silent generation, or even baby boomers, if your parent was a baby boomer, is that they treated grandkids different than they treated children.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that something? Yes. Why? Why was that?
I do not understand that, but my daughter could get away with murder with my mother.
She didn't get the razor strap.
She didn't get
the extension cord. She didn't get the belt. She didn't get the switch. Do you think because our parents became more mature, or do you think they just got softer?
I think both.
Okay.
You know, it's something like when I was growing up, my sister and I, we couldn't play in our mother's bed. But you
couldn't jump up and down.
You couldn't jump up and down.
You definitely shouldn't sit on the bed if you had on your dirty clothes.
No.
If you had to just get out the shower to get in the bed, because the bed was a clean place. You don't bring dirt to the bed.
Right. Right. And then my little nephew and my daughter, they'd jump up in the bed and be playing with mama, and mama being there playing with them. You know, and I said, wait a minute, I got beaten if I jumped in the bed. But
the grandkids
got away with everything.
It's a trampoline.
Right.
So we have a question, Mr. Beckwith, from Sandra Kennedy. She's asking, what do you do if it's been years, but you aren't there yet and you're still grieving?
Still grieving. So is there a time for grieving? Thank you, Sandra Kennedy, all the way from Columbus, Georgia. Let's say this is that there is no time period on grieving. We do want to grieve as though we have hope. Yeah. You ever heard us say that? Right. We know that our loved one has passed away, but we, especially as Christians, and I know Sandra Kennedy is that we have to know that they're in a better place. So we do have to move forward in our grief. Now, what if I'm just not feeling it? What will be your advice to Sandra Kennedy? And I want to hear from Pastor Eaton. And I'll tell you mine, Miss Sandra. Even when I'm not feeling it, I force myself. Yeah. Because it's easy to just fall into I'm going to do absolutely nothing. But I find once I start holding those conversations, once I get up and show up, normally I feel better.
Right.
But Miss Kennedy, let me say this to you: don't do it alone.
Right.
You have to have a friend. You have to have a relative, someone that you trust, that you can sit around and talk about the memories like we're doing now. Because both of our mothers are deceased. You have to have someone that you can share that with. And I believe that would help you move forward in the grieving process, as well as the celebration process. So many times I didn't feel like doing something for my kids when it was their birthday, but I knew it was their birthday. I wasn't as excited as they were about their birthday, but I knew I had to get up and do it because it was their birthday. So Miss Kennedy, what I'll say to you and anyone else who are listening, don't do it for yourself. Even if you don't feel like it, do it for them. So hopefully that'll help. Now, what will be your advice?
My advice is to just, like you said, have someone that you could talk to.
Okay.
And
get you a pastor, A. Louis Eaton.
And then sometimes what you could do, and people say you crazy, but I don't. Sometimes you just talk to yourself.
Okay.
And just say, okay, if Mama, I want to talk to you about this, or even
so you
write
say go ahead and talk to your mother.
Yes.
Even though she's not in physical form.
But spiritually, she's there with you.
Okay.
So continue, to just say, just let them know how you feel.
And you saying talk directly to them. And I know sometimes me alone is a tough situation because my mind can take me all kind of places. But if I'm sitting next to someone else, they kind of keep me in a reality. They don't let me sway one way or the other. But if I stay at home, if I stay in bed, if I don't get up and go share that day with someone, I will go into a depression. We know that's a part of a grieving process. That's where we don't want to be.
Right.
And the reason we don't feel it, it is normal to be in that depressed area. It's normal to feel that way. But we have to get around others that love them like we did. And even if they didn't even know your mother, they had a mother. Or even if they didn't know your father, they had a father. And even if they mom or dad wasn't as good as yours, everybody has a different story.
Right.
I like to hear Eaton tells a story about his mother, and then in return, he listened to me tell him stories about my mother. And that seemed to help me a lot in celebrating, especially today being her birthday. So I hope that helped Miss Sandra Kennedy.
Yes.
And hopefully help someone else out there as well. Another thing I've learned, Pastor, as a minister, is that when I give, God fills me back up.
Right.
Meaning that I have to talk about it.
Right.
I have to let it out in order to get filled back.
Right.
Back up. Tell me a little bit more about your mother.
Well,
we know she used to beat you.
Yes.
Did she love you?
Yes.
Tell me about not just the beating part. Tell me what she would do to show you that she loved you.
Well, one thing my mother would do, she would sit down and talk to us.
Really? She was a talker.
And she would tell us, especially about getting the education and what all we would have to face, because we were facing a time in the era when it was certain things that Black people couldn't do.
Okay.
And so let's
talk about that time period, because you said you have a millennial or you have a Gen Z or somebody that don't know anything about what time period are you speaking of? What year?
Well, I'm speaking about from 53 up.
From 1953, and your mom was holding this conversation with you around about what?
When around about 1959.
59. So 59, remember we still had Malcolm X.
Right.
We still had Martin Luther King. We said all the people that you kind of know that has passed away in the civil rights movement was yet alive.
Yeah.
So the fight was on.
Right.
The fight was on. It was on in the streets. It was on in the school. It was on everywhere, right?
And the thing is, we witnessed the signs that said colored restroom.
Right. That was our reality as an African American community.
Right. And I remember one time I asked my mother, I said, why? What is it about us that it seemed like it's hard for people to accept us because of our race? And my mother had to sit down and she went to the word of God on me. And she told me, she said, son, if they'll do it to a green tree, what you think they'll do to a dry one? And so it was some things that we had to go through. I witnessed the voting rights and all of that. And I was happy that I had somebody who could talk to me about it, because my first impression was, okay, if they're going to be this way, let's just go to Fifth City and get it out of the way.
Fight about it.
Right.
And it's interesting because you're saying not only your mother whooped you and disciplined you, but she also spoke to you and taught you about God.
Mm-hmm.
So she had this great combination of things.
Yes.
And it's interesting because when you talk to the generation before you, they survived more than what you did.
Right.
Because you think you're in a tough situation in the 50s.
Right.
But keep in mind, she grew up in the 40s.
Right.
So things had gotten better by the time you got here. So a lot of things we're complaining about, they're looking at us saying, boy, what you tripping over, we had to learn to step over.
Right.
And that's how we feel sometimes.
Right.
We're talking to the younger generation. We're saying, looking at them saying, there's no way you would have ever made it through what we are going through. Right. But that's just the way it is. They are struggling within their own time.
Mm-hmm.
So thank God for mamas.
Yes.
Yeah, thank God for that.
And what really helped was that my mother had a prayer life.
Okay.
And I believe.
So you think you learned how to pray from your mom? And I know your dad has passed on to glory as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was your dad? Because your dad was a minister.
Right. Well, I used to always go to my mother.
Okay.
And
why mama as a boy?
Well, I used to tell her, because my daddy used to ask me, son, I'm your pastor and your dad. Why? I said, you have too many people to pray for. Mama just got me.
Isn't that something?
And so I know she'll spend more time trying to deal with me than my dad could.
Okay, so dad was a minister. He was busy.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did he pastor you and your family, but he also pastored a community.
Right.
Mom only had y'all.
Right.
She didn't have to have nobody else's kids. She didn't have to. That's interesting.
Right.
Now that's a good thing to share.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to celebrate when you think about celebration.
Right. And when you're a preacher's child, you label.
Okay.
But my parents used to tell me, we're not going to be labeled.
Okay.
Today is this type person.
As a PK.
We're going to be a person that learns how to treat and love everybody the way you want to be treated and loved.
So everybody's saying the way that we chose to celebrate today. We chose to celebrate, talk about the memories of our mothers, what they did for us and what they did with us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about another way we can celebrate. Can we actually go somewhere and do something? Can you still do a balloon release? You know, some people will bring their loved ones flowers or they'll bring them a gift. But what do you think about doing that even in death?
Yes, it's still holding the memories and letting people know, I hadn't forgotten about this person. This person will always be a part of my life. And so a balloon release, a bird release, whatever, even the butterfly release, whatever you feel comfortable with, just do that.
So you can still do something in their memory.
Yes.
And I guess I always recommend to get with somebody. Everybody needs a friend. Everybody needs somebody. But even if you had to do it by yourself, you can still do a balloon release by yourself.
Right.
Or you could do some type of release or even bring flowers.
Right.
Now, I'm not one who visits the cemetery. My mother wasn't one that visited the cemetery. I never visited a cemetery with my mother or my father. Mm-hmm. And we owned funeral homes for 42 years. Mm-hmm. Isn't that something?
That's something.
Never visit. I've never been to my maternal grandmother's grave. I've never been to my mother's mother grave. And I remember her very well. We grew up and she was a first lady of the Church of Living God. And I've never been to her grave. I've never seen her grave other than the day we buried her. Mm-hmm. I've never seen my paternal's grandmother's grave. Now, we're talking about my dad's mom, the one who told him to use white cars, the one who, it influenced his entire life when he came to the funeral business. That I've never been to her grave. She was buried back in 1968. Wow. And I've never visited her grave. He's never took me back and said, hey, Junior, this is Mama's grave. He never took me there. They just didn't believe in visiting the dead.
Right.
They just didn't.
Right.
So I never really had that. So I never been one that would come to the cemetery and put flowers on a grave or go there for their birthdays or Mother's Day or Father's Day. A lot of people get that opportunity. What do you think about visiting graves?
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Okay.
I'm here in Dallas. My mother was buried in Vernon.
Okay.
My mother was born February the 7th. And I found a grave out at Larland that had the lady was born February the 7th. And so some days when that thing hits me, I go out there and just sit. I don't know her, never met her, but just February the 7th did something for me.
So you are a cemetery visiting person. I know probably 90% of the people who watch and part of this show are people who actually visit graves. And that's the reason we have cemeteries, right? So we have some place to visit. So we have some place to go. It's interesting, you guys. I visited Napoleon grave in Paris, France. I've been to famous people graves. I've been to Washington, D.C. and saw where they put John F. Kennedy in the eternal flame. I visited some very famous people graves. I've been to Martin Luther King's tomb before, but I've never went back and visited grandmas.
Right.
I never went back and visited granddaddies. I never had any spiritual or physical connection that would bring me back to a cemetery. It's just not me. But I've passed by the cemetery. I've buried in the cemetery on Mother's Day and those other days, and it was packed.
Right.
You can't even get in the cemetery. There's so many people out there. We try to set up a grave, but families there got tables set up with food. And so that's one way to celebrate. You go out to the cemetery.
Right.
So I think you think it'll be good for somebody like a Sandra Kennedy or somebody thinking, what should I do, even when I don't feel like doing it?
Yes, that would be one thing she could do. And just go like we used to sing a song growing up, have a little talk with Jesus. Just go and have a little talk with your loved one and let them know that, hey, I miss you, but I still love you.
So if we choose to have a party, if we choose to do a celebration, you think it's okay to have a birthday party for someone that's deceased?
Yes.
Now let's talk about the venues. Now we have birthday parties, we have memorial services, we have things all over. We can still rent a venue in their memory. We can still put their photos up now with all this technology.
Right.
We can actually do videos, we can do posters, we can do blankets, and they can be present in that manner.
Right.
You can do it at the cemetery, or you can actually have it at a venue. Or we can have it at the house.
Right.
We can still bring in the birthday cake, we can still bring in the punch, we can still bring in the DJ, we can dance, maybe do something without always being sad. We can still celebrate our loved one.
Right.
So we talked about sitting around with somebody you love, a friend or someone, and talk about their memories. Then we talked about maybe we can go to a cemetery and have like a party or a balloon release or some type of flowers placed out there. Talked about even having a party at a venue where we actually do something in memory of them. But we still, the bottom line, we want to celebrate their birthdays. We still want to celebrate Christmas. We still want to celebrate Mother's Day. We still want to celebrate Father's Day. And just because they passed away, what we don't want to do as sons and daughters is lose our identity.
Right.
Do you think that can happen? A lot of times people say, I'm now motherless. I've heard people say, now join the club. You're now in the motherless club. Or join the club. You're now in the fatherless club. But I have to say to myself, I don't want to be in a motherless club. I don't want to be in a fatherless club, because to say that is to say that they didn't exist.
Right. Must be on like on Mother's Day, I wear a white rose with red in it.
So you say that they're deceased but yet alive?
Yet alive.
Okay. Because the white, I believe, meant deceased, and red means that your mother's still alive.
And so she's, although physically she's not with me, but spiritually she always be with me.
Right. I definitely respect that. So let's talk about, we have some people that was fatherless, that didn't grow up in a household with their father, that father would abandon them. Right. We know you had to have one to be physically born, but you didn't have to have one to be raised.
Right.
So I consider that as different from someone whose loved one passed away. Right. Because they was very active in your, or they was active in your life. And what's the difference is that you have good memories. So I would think we don't have to lose our identity just because our loved one passed away. That's important. You're still a daughter that has a mother that's having a birthday. Right. Something should happen that day. That's right. I was 33 years old. Mom passed away. For 33 years, we celebrated her birthday. At least I was a part of it. I can remember maybe 23 of them, at least. So if you do something 23, 25 years, and all of a sudden the next year you say you can't do it no more, that's not good for us mentally, physically, or emotionally. You agree?
It's not.
So we should continue to celebrate our loved ones, even on holidays or birthdays, if they are not physically here.
Right.
And it's not almost for them as much as it's for us.
Right.
You agree with that?
That's right.
So let's talk about some of the ways. We talked about visiting cemeteries. We talked about having parties and birthday parties and memories. We talked about bird releases, and we talked about a butterfly release. And balloons are a lot cheaper.
Yes.
I can run over to Party City or something. We could definitely do a balloon release.
Right.
You know, it's interesting. I throw this in for free. Where did those balloons go? We just let them go. I just want them to be followed on the freeways, causing accidents. So they just end up in the tree somewhere. Because you know they made of plastic, it's biodegradable. I bet it's balloon stuff
everywhere.
And it's still not illegal, I don't believe, you guys. You might want to check with your city ordinance to see if you can do a balloon release. And because we see that all the time. And you do know the balloons don't go to heaven, right?
No.
Eventually they're going to have to fall somewhere. Who picks up the balloon mess? But anyway, let's move forward, you guys. And how do we celebrate a loved one, even though they have passed away? We've already had their homegoing celebration,
right?
But we still have the birthdays, we still have Christmas, we still have Mother and Father's Day, and special days that are important. So do we continue to celebrate them today? We said yes. And we're saying there are many different ways, and hopefully this is helping someone that you should celebrate your loved one's birthday.
Right.
It's quite often, let me throw this in for security purposes. Y'all don't use your loved one's date of birth or date of death for security purposes.
Right.
Your loved one's date of birth shouldn't be your alarm code.
Right.
Your loved one's date of death should not be your alarm code. Quite often people will say, I do it in memory of them, but you guys, that's the easiest thing for a thief to figure out, is that if you use your mama's birthday,
right,
or if you use your daddy's birthday,
right,
or if you use their date of death, you guys, those things are public record.
Right.
So they'll have, if something's asking for a 4-digit code and you use your mama's birthday, more than likely a thief can figure that out.
That's
Definitely
right.
People you don't want. Or if it's a 6-digit code and you're using 10, 15, 42. Well, that's going to be easily figured out by or using your kid's birthday or things of that sort.
Right.
So security purposes, let's help somebody today. As you're celebrating, y'all don't use them as your code for your phone. Don't use them for the code for your alarm. Don't use them for the code to get in and out of your house or whatever the case may be. Remember, thieves can easily figure it out, and sometimes that is public record. Quite often we'll post on, this is another way of celebrating. We use social media now. Social media wasn't in place when my mother passed away. Social media now we use to announce birthdays. We use to announce celebrations. What do you think about posting your loved one on social media, even though they have passed away?
It's good because you have relatives in other areas, and they might not be thinking, some days is not important to them as other days.
Right.
And then when you post that, they'll see it. And you might get a call. I was just thinking about you. You posted about your mother's birthday. And man, I remember my mother's name was Lois. So they said, I remember when Lois done this and she done that. So that helped a whole lot.
It does help. When you post it on social media and get condolences from other people. And also, they may not call, they may not reach out, but sometimes they can hit something on the social media comment button and maybe help you feel better. Or like you say, if they share a memory, even if they didn't know them, they just let you know that they're thinking of you that day.
Right.
Because they know this day is important to you. How many of us post our birthdays on social media? We do it all the time. And if you ever want to get a lot of hits, that's going to be the day you get the most hits on your social media.
Right.
You might only get 2 people like anything else you do it the whole year. When your birthday comes, you got 300 happy birthdays.
That's right.
How often you see that out there?
That's right.
But we want to do the same thing with our loved ones as well. We want to put that out there so that people can come back and say happy birthday to them. Because if it's important to you, it's also important to them. That makes a big difference.
It makes a difference.
Good. So Ask The Undertaker Day was definitely talking about, should we continue to celebrate our loved ones even after they are passed on to glory? That answer is yes. Is there many different ways we can do that? Yes. Do we recommend that you do it by yourself? Most definitely not. If you choose to do it, that's fine. But get with others. Most celebrations are, you're going to have at least one friend or one person you can speak with. Plan it ahead of time. Let me say that. Be sure that just like any other party or any other celebration, don't just get up and play it by ear. Your body, your mind, your emotions are not going to feel like it. I guarantee you. It's not going to wake up as a good day. But if you get started, if you get moving, if you pre-plan for it, say, hey, sister, brother, friend, meet me at the cemetery today at this time.
Right.
You're going to push yourself to be there at this time.
Right.
If you just do it yourself, you'll say to yourself, I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody there to hold you accountable for it.
Right.
If you say we're having a balloon release this day at this time, you feel obligated because you had others to meet you there.
Right.
But if you do it, say, hey, I'm just going to do it, a lot of times I can back out because I have no one that's going to hold me accountable.
Right.
So be sure you pre-plan for your loved one's birthday and how and what you're going to do for their celebration. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea.
All right. So we got a few things coming up. We have Thanksgiving. I don't know, many people don't do Halloween anymore. We talked about I talked about Halloween on one of my shows one day, and what I find is that most Christians, especially the generation afterwards, was pretty much taught that this is a pagan holiday, spiritual, against all good spirits, so they don't celebrate Halloween. I didn't agree with them.
I didn't.
What do you think about Halloween?
Oh, I enjoy, because we used to have what we call heaven and hell parties.
Right, at the church, right?
Yeah.
And they would send you to hell at church. Like if you could remember something.
Well, back then it was cold, and so we know if we went to heaven, we got ice cream, and we went to hell, we got chili. And a lot of us used to want to go to hell because it was too cold to go out and eat ice cream.
I remember that in church. Then you had not only hot sauce, you had a lot of different things in hell that you kind of liked.
Right.
Not only did you like going to hell, you liked what it took to get to hell.
Right.
Because if you was disrespectful, you got sent to hell. So I'm going to be disrespectful because I want to be disrespectful. Then I like the things that's in hell. The heaven and hell party. You remember them?
Oh, yes.
You talking about a good way to remember your parents, a good way to remember somebody to celebrate is days like that. You remember heaven?
Oh, yes.
Now, heaven was good to me. You said it was cold, but what I remember about heaven, it was pretty. So when we got there, they always put us in these dark lights when we went to hell. And I'm talking about Mount Rose, y'all. Mount Rose Baptist Church when it's at 3707 Copeland back in the 60s. Back in the 60s. Most people like, what? They was there in the 60s? Yeah, the building was still there in the 60s. And then there was another part that when you walked in heaven there, it was beautiful. It was light blue. They had the clouds. They had nice music.
Right.
And you know what was more important? Everybody was happy.
Yes.
Wasn't nobody trying to scare you. Wasn't nobody, it was all good in heaven.
Yes.
That's what I remember about the heaven.
Yes.
You like heaven.
But see, I wanted to chill it because I knew I could always go get some ice cream somewhere. But when it's cold, bring me the chili.
Now, was your mom and dad a part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they.
The heaven and hell party.
My daddy used to say, "Well, give them both."
And I don't remember. Was that the Halloween time? I don't remember when we did the heaven and hell. Was that for Halloween?
That was Halloween.
Now they have trunk or treat, so now they're having things at the church. Now that was before my parents' time. Trunk or treat came after my parents. I was an adult when trunk or treat came. What I remember with my parents and with my siblings that we actually went out and trick or treat.
Right.
I mean, we actually went in the neighborhood, we put on costumes, and we actually knocked on doors, and we were actually giving candy. Right. And I turned around and did the same thing with my kids.
Right. And you knew if the porch light was on, you could stop at that house. If it wasn't on, you keep on going.
And our parents went with us.
Right.
Or, our older sibling. It's not like they just let us loose in the neighborhood.
Right.
So we get snatched or anything like that. Right. It wasn't like that. So it wasn't a bad thing. So these are all good memories.
Yes.
That we can talk about on special days. So Halloween is something you can celebrate without. Right. We're not pagans, are we?
No.
We don't worship devils.
No.
Monsters don't even remind me of devils. To be honest with you, I never look at a monster as a pagan thing or anything like that. I know it's make believe. I know it's made up, and I've always looked at it as a positive thing. So after Thanksgiving, after Halloween. Then you have Thanksgiving.
Right.
Now, what is it that you used to do with your family on Thanksgiving?
Well, we used to sit around the night before, like my mother made the extra pie or something the night before Thanksgiving. All of us sit around and cut a piece of that pie and sit there.
So y'all had the pie the night before actually the Thanksgiving itself.
And then on Thanksgiving Day, that's when all the goodies came out. Okay. But we had a little pre-Thanksgiving before.
Okay. All right. And I remember Thanksgiving because we always came together as a family. And we were very thankful about a lot of things that happened to us in our life. The devil tried so many different things in the Beckwith family. but we overcame them, and we were very thankful on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
We always spent it with our parents up to this year. This will be the first Thanksgiving we'll have with our dad.
Right.
So the first thing without going to what we would call a home house.
Right.
African Americans, y'all know what I'm talking about. We always have that house we always call the home house.
That's
the house
right.
either you grew up in or the house that your parents lived in.
And you know, I don't care how many family members came in, everybody stayed at the house.
Isn't that something? It wasn't really a hotel thing.
We would sleep on the floor, some in one room, some in, and it was just
we did that. We
time.
Traveled too. I never stayed at a hotel in Texarkana, Arkansas. Never. I mean, our entire lives. But my generation, we don't stay at people's houses. And my children don't stay at people's houses. But we did.
Right.
Did y'all stay at y'all relatives' house?
Yes.
We would have never got a hotel in a town. Even when we went to Grambling, Louisiana, on my father's side, we always stayed with Aunt Martha. We always stayed in her house. I've never stayed at a hotel in Grambling in my life. Just never did. I mean, it was just understood. You hear,
right.
This is where you sleep. Now, like you said, we slept everywhere.
Right.
And this is interesting. We never went out to eat.
Never did. Never did.
How did they afford to feed all? We would just show up. I don't know if Dad called ahead of time. I know we didn't have cell phones back then. I don't know if he called before we left home, but we would actually show up at Aunt Martha's house, Uncle Price's house, and in Grambling, Louisiana. It's like, we here.
Right.
They would act like they were
excited.
So glad to see us.
Yes.
I know it was inconvenient because she had to go get the blankets. She had to go get the pillows. Junior, you sleeping here. Your mom and dad is sleeping there. Other siblings are sleeping here. And listen, I had cousins.
Right.
They live there too.
Right.
We done came and inconvenienced them. We done. Isn't that something?
But seemed like everybody was happy being together, because it was just certain days we could get together.
It was just understood.
And it was just something understood that we were going to show that peace, happiness, and love. Just be thankful.
Just understood. So as we celebrate those who have passed on, even on special days after their past.
Right.
Memories like that.
Yes.
Man, I'm glad you said that. Never stayed at a hotel in Grambling, even to this day. I know there's a hotel somewhere off of 20 up there, but we never stayed there. I know it's a hotel somewhere in Texarkana, Arkansas, but never stayed there. Always stayed at relatives' houses. I got Monroe, Louisiana, Winsboro, Louisiana, Gilbert, Louisiana, Tallulah, Louisiana. I always stayed at the house, never at a hotel. Times have changed.
Yes.
Would you stay at somebody's house now?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not inviting nobody else's house. Now, when I go, it's just understood I'm going to be at a hotel. Isn't that terrible?
One thing, the reason I like staying at the house, we don't go to sleep. And that's real late. We stay up there, be talking and having fun and just thinking of the good time.
Man, I'm going to have to. I ain't never spent that in Michael Beckwith's house.
What?
Yeah. I'm going to call Michael, man. Ask him why when I come to Lula, I'm staying at the hotel. I used to stay at his mom's house. Why ain't never stayed at his house?
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Why do you think I ain't invited, man?
Well, now that's between you and Michael.
We gotta talk about that. And it's interesting because Jackie, her family, they still stay at each other's house. Because her family they automatically stay at the house. That's my favorite time because I know I'm getting some home cooked meal and have some company. And we always look forward to that. They never said a hotel. Always said house. And when we go to Monroe, their house is always open. Now, remember, I'm a hotel guy, right? So I go to Monroe looking for a hotel, y'all. I never forget, just this year, all the hotels are booked.
Oh, no.
I got there, and I had a hotel, and I went to the hotel, and the hotel told me I gave your room away because you got here too late.
Oh, wow.
I was fighting mad, but guess I ended up staying at her brother's house.
Right.
Because it's just one of those things. It's just understood. Families there, you always have a place to stay. Yeah, those are good memories. How much time do I have on that, Ask The Undertaker? Because I got to get to my 7 things too. We do try to teach a little bit on this too, right?
Yes.
So let's make sure we got this straight. What do we do when it's our loved one's birthday? When it's those holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Halloween, whatever the case, we're saying still celebrate. If nothing else, sit around with a friend like Pastor Eton and talk about the good memories. We can still have the parties. We can still do the balloon releases. We can visit the grave. And it sounds like we have some pretty good memories of our family, don't you?
Yes.
And it makes you feel better when you sit around and
talk
about it a little bit. And we're saying whatever you do, you know your loved ones' birthday's coming up, you know the holidays are coming up. Make sure you prepare for that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just get up and play it by ear.
Mm-hmm.
Actually prepare on what you're going to do on that day.
Right.
All right, let's move on. Because the first thing on our 7 thing list is preparation.
That's right.
Pre-praying, pre-planning.
Right.
So let's talk about your pre-planning. Now, how old are you now, Pastor?
I'm 69.
69. How much time do you think you got left?
I hope I have 40 years.
You want to live to 109.
Yes.
I don't want to live that long, you guys. I don't think my health will last me another 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to pick a time, I'm going to give myself about 20 more years.
Mm-hmm.
So I am 55, be 56 next month. Around about 75 be good for me.
Mm-hmm.
You want to plan for 100.
Yes, I want to see my grandkids and my great grandkids grow up.
Okay, and I tell Jackie all the time, I'm not a granddaddy. I don't need to have nobody on my knee talking about pawpaw. I ain't keeping nobody else's kids. Keep your own kids. All right, let's move on. I got about 20 more years. So I'm saying 20, you saying 40, but we both need to prepare, right? Right. For those 20 years from now, 40, who knows that we may not get what we think we're going to get.
Right.
Because I think I'm going to get 20, and I'm preparing for 20.
Right.
And I got a 20-year term, and I got money put aside for when I live for 20 more years. But who knows I can die tomorrow?
Right.
You know that, right?
That's right.
I think last week we rushed you to the hospital.
Right.
You know, I think you was going to make it, right?
Well, man, I'm so glad.
You trying to get your 40 years.
I'm trying to get my 40.
So y'all see you made it.
Yeah.
You're back. You're still alive. But we have to prepare not only to die 40 years from now, not only to die 20 years from now, but we have to prepare to die 40 minutes from now.
Right.
And we have to prepare to die 20 minutes from now.
Right.
Not just 20 years. Now, I want to save enough money so I can live for the next 20 years.
Right.
You have to make sure you're in a position where you can live for the next 40 years.
Right.
But what happens if you die when you want to? Let's say if you die 40 years from now. What do you want us to do with you 40 years from now? Because times will be different.
Right. But if I have that pre-need,
okay,
and have everything set up.
Tell me what you're going to have in your pre-need on what we're going to do with you 40 years from now. What you want to have?
I still want to have a service. Still want to be buried at
National service where?
At my home church.
So you think a church will actually think people still be going to church 40 years from now?
Well, there's going to be one going to be.
So if you die 40 minutes from now, you want me to take you to the church.
Right.
If you die 40 years from now, you still want me to take your body, like your physical body,
right, in
the church?
Yes.
Okay. And what you want to have when we get there?
I want them to just have regular little service.
Like what?
Shouting,
you want a
singing,
scripture, a prayer, and
I want it all.
How long do you want to last? So, most people come to a funeral being a hairy.
Yeah.
Everybody said that funeral lasts too long. He preached too long. They sung too long. They supposed to be doing remarks. They got up there and did a solo. How long do you want your funeral to last?
Well, Miss B, I told my daughter I wanted my service for 3 days.
Okay, 3 days.
She told me,
how much per day? How long per day?
Couple of hours each day, but she
you want us to be in the church for 2 hours,
right? Like
Sunday morning, because I think that's about how long we stay in church on Sunday.
Right,
about 2 hours.
And don't be there being sad. Be there because I have lived the life that the Lord has required for me to live.
So in our pre-need, one of the things we know by watching this show, listening to this show, we know to get a casket, we know to pay for our funeral,
right?
We know to tell us what to do with the found disposition. But in your pre-need, you have to be detailed like that.
Right.
You have to write down, I want a 2-hour funeral.
Right.
Because if you don't want it right there, you want a 2-hour funeral, sometimes preachers feel be more than 2 hours.
Yes.
Sometimes families say, I ain't sitting up for 2 hours, we're going to have a 20-minute funeral.
Right.
But you wanted a 2-hour funeral, so you have to put that a part of the pre-need. So we're trying to teach those who, when we say do your pre-need, give us some details of what you want done at your service. And you want a celebration.
Yes.
Saying, right? Do you want the casket open or closed?
I want to open when you come in and view.
Okay. And
then close, and after that, just go right on into a service.
So you have to put that in writing so your family doesn't have to make that decision for you,
right.
Nor should the church make that decision for you.
Right.
Like in my church, at Mount Rose Church, you can only view the body in the foyer. You can't view the body in the sanctuary. That's a rule at our church.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is.
Right.
So let's say if I want to be viewed at the end, I have to tell my family don't have my funeral where.
At the church.
At that church, right? Take me to somewhere that's going to allow me.
Right.
If that's my wishes. Y'all, that's a part of a pre-need. All of those details have to be in there.
Right.
Like I said, we know what a pre-need is. You've been on this show long enough. People have been watching this show long enough. For those who are watching it for the first time or listening for a first time, pre-need is basically you choosing what you want. Mm-hmm. You're telling your family in writing exactly what to do with you. Right. And you can do that two ways. You can finance it. You could actually pay for it. Or you can just have them to pay for it.
Right.
With the number 2 thing on our list, insurance.
Yes.
That's what insurance is for, isn't it?
Yes. And one thing, and bless your dad for letting us know this, not to put everything in the ground.
Well, some people feel that way.
We got to live on after, that person.
So you're saying that insurance should be an inheritance for family and friends?
Right.
It's interesting because I hear somebody say this the other day and I kind of agree. Well, I'm going to spend all my inheritance. But I won't spend my own insurance. Oh, then y'all didn't hear what I said. I'm going to spend all the money. I ain't leaving y'all no money. I'm going to fly. I'm going to buy me a car. I'm going to buy me a house. I'm going to be a swimming pool. Buy me some clothes. You ain't getting no money. I'm spending all the money. So you better put some insurance on me. If you want something from me, what you ain't going to be able to do is fight over money. So I ain't leaving that. You better hope I die 20 minutes from now and not 20 years because I'll figure out how to spend all the money. But what you cannot spend is insurance.
Yes.
Guess what you can't blow? Insurance. Did y'all know insurance has nothing to do with the stock market?
You sure don't.
Once you invest into insurance, it doesn't matter what happens with inflation. It doesn't matter if the stock market crash. Insurance companies still pay the beneficiary.
That's right.
Y'all, that is the only risk-free investment. Isn't that crazy?
That's something.
It's interesting. You can spend all of your kids' inheritance. You can spend all your wife's inheritance. But just leave them the beneficiary of a
insurance,
and they will get their inheritance back.
They sure will.
So even if you choose to save $100,000 and say I'm saving this for my kids, well, just take out a $100,000 insurance policy. The money you have in a bank for them. Check this out: if you invest into the right whole life insurance, not only would they have the insurance, but you would actually get an investment from the money you invested.
Right.
Y'all, right now, that thing's paying over 4% a year. Isn't that something?
That's good.
You can take certain whole life policies and you can actually have cash value in them.
Right.
Meaning instead of me saving money in a bank account, which y'all know bank account right now is like 0.1 interest, you're making no money in the bank.
Right.
You could take that money and invest it into a whole life policy with cash dividends and draw interest from the money you invested into it and have an inheritance for your family. You can cash, as long as you don't cash your 100% out, you can take money off of it.
Right.
Isn't that something?
That's something.
And still leave something. You can spend their inheritance and still leave them something that's beneficial.
Yes.
That's what's great about insurance.
Yes.
Insurance is the best investment in the world.
That's it.
Term life, make sure if you choose to do whole life, you do the right type of whole life. You got universal life. There's so many great insurance policies out there that'll be good for your family to have an inheritance.
Right.
So you can go ahead and spend all your money. You can spend all your paycheck and still leave your family something. Right. Now, what about that last will and testament?
That's the best thing going because that stop all the fussing and fighting.
Well, you hope. At least it's in writing.
It's in writing.
Yeah. I don't know what you fight about. It ain't yours anyway. So I should determine who get the house, who get the car, who get the things I leave behind. One of the things I didn't get to sell or spend, I'm going to have to decide where they go. What about the people you owe? Do you need to pay them?
Yes.
All right. So we don't want no black titles on a house, no black titles on cars.
No.
Make sure you leave something behind to pay the people that you... Wouldn't you hate to get to heaven and somebody try to collect from you? You know you owe me in debt. I need my money. So, y'all, 2 things you want to put in place. You want that last will and testament. You want to connect it to a trust. Some things are private that you don't want us to know about. That's not going to go to probate. Make sure that's in the trust. Get you a trust attorney in the last will and testament. probate attorney, make sure those
Yes.
things are in place.
Yeah.
You guys listen, every week we also talk about a living will. See how sometimes things are not into death. Sometimes it's just into
Right.
sickness. Sometimes it's just into disability. And if that is the case, you want to make sure you have something in place in
Right.
writing telling us exactly what to do with you. So he said you want to live another 40 years. Do you want to live in a nursing home?
No, not really.
Don't want to live in a nursing home.
Oh.
So he has to put that in place because he told me he want to live 40 years. So he don't want me to pull the plug. I got to do something with him. He
Yeah.
has to tell me what to do with him. He has to tell his daughter what to do with him.
Mhm.
That's what we call a living will.
Right.
And make sure you have some disability insurance.
Right.
It goes with the instructions with the living will, because we're going to have to do something with you, and we have to be able to afford
Right.
what we are doing. Come on, you guys. Now, what about if I got a bank account? Do I need to leave some money in it?
Yes.
How much time we have over there, producer? All right. What do you think?
You need to have someone on that account that if something happened to you, they can go in and get the funds out.
That's interesting because I always say I want to spend all my kids' inheritance, but I don't know when I'm going to die.
Mhm.
So if I know I'm going to die 20 years from now, don't worry, I'll spend all of it.
Mhm.
Sometime I'm going to die before I think I'm going to die.
Mhm.
So there is going to be some money left.
Right.
But I don't want them to have to fight about it. I don't want them to have to go to probate court. I don't want them to have to do anything to get my money out the bank.
Right.
It's my money, and who I want to leave it to, you must put a beneficiary on every account. It's
Yeah.
crazy. They'll let you open a bank account
Mhm.
and not ask
Yeah.
you who the beneficiary is.
That's right.
The bank does not make it mandatory for you to have one.
Mm.
It's not mandatory. Most of the time, they're not even going to ask you.
Mm.
You have to tell them, I was watching this Ask The Undertaker show, and this Undertaker told me to put a beneficiary on here.
Right.
If you are banking electronically on your phone, normally you can go out there right now to your app while you're listening and watching us right now and put that beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
Put that on there. So that is not an issue. That is
Right.
major. Don't you agree?
That's very major.
Don't want to leave any money for somebody that don't deserve it. Don't want a judge. We don't want anyone else, executor, that they put over your probate to decide, or over your estate to decide who gets your money.
Yeah.
You make that decision as far as beneficial. And I say this to everybody, you guys. Listen, all the money shouldn't go to one person.
Right.
You might want to give some to this person.
Right.
You might want to give a percentage to that person.
Mm-hmm.
You have a right to break that up in those percentages.
Right.
Everything don't have to be 100% toward one person. You might want to give 10% here, 80% here,
Right.
another 10% there.
Right.
And you have that right to do it. You have a right. You can have as many beneficiaries as you choose, and you can have them to get certain percentages of what's left over.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's stay here for a little while, you guys. Who's going to be in charge of your funeral?
My daughter.
So your daughter has the right of disposition. What
Mhm.
about your grandkids? How old's your grandkids?
They are 30 and 24.
So your grandkids are adults.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think your daughter's going to follow your wishes or your grandkids? Which one you think would be more respectful when you pass away?
Oh, really? I think it'd be my grandkids.
So you might want to consider that.
So I
right
might
of
want to
disposition.
consider.
You know, a lot of times we think our next of kin need to be our right of disposition. That is not the case. The right of disposition needs to be the person who's actually going to follow your
It's true.
wishes. Because what your daughter tell you about what's going to happen at your funeral?
She said we're not going to be no 3 days.
Yeah, she said
So-
that. But if you would let your
Grandkids,
grandkids,
They
right,
probably would do it.
yeah, they'll do it. Like, Papa, I want this.
They
Mama.
love Papa.
Right. So who you think ought to be right disposition? The person next to kin that you know hard head while they're yet alive, or the person that's going to follow my.
Instruction.
There you go.
Yeah.
So how fast can you change that right disposition?
Right away.
Right away. So we have the papers right here at Golden Gate. If you're
Mhm.
home, yeah, as soon as the show is over, Pastor Eton and I are going to redo his right of disposition, and we're going to put his grandkids on there. Now check this out. Don't mess around and make them right of disposition and your daughter beneficiary.
Oh, Lord.
Because the one with the gold make the
Make
make the
decision.
rules. I don't know if
That's
y'all knew that or not. You mess around, put somebody in charge, get somebody else the money, find out who's really in
right.
charge. Remember, beneficiary of the accounts, beneficiary of the insurance policy need to match who is the right of disposition. The person with the money need to be the same person that's in charge. Does it have to be a family member, Pastor?
No.
Don't have to be a
It don't
family
have to
member.
be a family member. It's
Now, that's
someone
interesting.
that you trust. Either it could be like a law firm or someone like that.
So it doesn't have to, that's big. I can't say that enough. All families don't get along.
Right.
All families can't be trusted.
Right.
Your blood does not make you close.
That's right.
We just have the same DNA. We just have the same blood running through our veins.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that you're going to take care of me, or you're going to take
Right.
care of my business, or you're going to take care of what I want taken care of just because you're kin to me. Y'all, those days are over.
Right.
Last will and testament should be given to the people I wanted to have, and not just because you're kin to me.
Right.
Beneficiary of insurance policy should be the people that I think deserve an
Right.
inheritance, not just because you are kin to me.
Right.
This is not a monarchy in UK.
Right.
You don't just become the king because your mama was the queen.
Right.
No, that's not the way it works. You're not in charge just because you are the next king.
That's right.
We need to decide. We know who's going to take care of business. We know who's going to take care of the family. We know who's going to carry out our wishes. And we need that person in charge. It doesn't take an act of Congress to get that done. We just have one sheet of paper,
right,
a right of disposition here at the funeral home, notarized, and one change of beneficiary. We talk about celebrating our mother. We talk about celebrating loved ones even after they're dead. Don't celebrate them by still having them beneficiaries.
Right.
If someone has passed away, you must remove them as beneficiary of the bank account.
Right.
Remove them as beneficiary of everything, every insurance policy. They should no longer be the right of disposition.
Right.
Remember, once they pass away, their name must come off of everything. And listen, the last thing on that 7 is a letter of last instruction.
Right.
How important is it that I'm able to find the paperwork or all these things that you have done? How important is it?
It's very important because there's some things that is listed in that letter that let the family know this is what I want done. This is where things are located. This is where my clothes are at the cleaners. And all this stuff, they need to know.
They need to know. Y'all listen, this is very important. It's a new age. It's no longer baby boomers, Generation X. Y'all listen to me. It should be electronic, not in an actual writing form.
Right.
You have to get this to someone electronically. You need to be emailing this so it doesn't get burned up. The flood doesn't make it go away. It doesn't get destroyed. It needs to be emailed to more than one person, just in case that person is not going to act right. Somebody else has or that person might pass away with you.
Right.
And somebody, I can tell you, let me find a paper wheel and my name ain't in it. Let me find out you gave something to somebody that I thought I should have gotten.
Right.
You think you actually going to see that wheel? They didn't do no wheel. I ain't seen no wheel. Then all of a sudden somebody pop up with a soft copy.
Right.
Here it is right here. Oh, man, you got me.
You got it. That's it.
Make sure you get them now. Make sure you put it in a email form. Make sure you put it in what we call a soft copy. Make sure you email it more than one person because you never know who's going to find it and if they're going to destroy it or if it's destroyed by fire or by flood or whatever the case may be. Don't trust them with it is what I would say.
That's right.
All right, we talked about 7 things, you guys. So important. Every week we're going to do that right here on Ask The Undertaker. And of course, we do the morning drive every morning.
Right.
Morlanda is back on Monday. Y'all, may God bless you. May God keep you is our prayer.